Are you guys ready? Okay. I'd like to welcome you to our city council meeting. Thank you so much for joining us. For the record, it is Tuesday, June 13th. It's a few minutes after 3. We'll start with roll call attendance. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Here.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Here.
Councilmember Borton?
Here.
Councilmember Byrd?
Here.
Mayor DeVeard?
Here.
And Councilmembers Cavanagh and Palmer are absent.
Thank you. Item number 1 or 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all stand and join us in the pledge to our flag. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3 is adoption of the agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I think we just got one amendment to the agenda. In the ordinance, 8A, the proposed ordinance is 17-1733, and then we need to amend ordinance number 17-1732A to the agenda, and with that, I move that we approve the amended agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. Item 4 is the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
move that we approve the consent agenda as printed and for the mayor to sign, the clerk to attest.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye.
All ayes. Okay, there were no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll move right into item 6A. With us today is the chair of our Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Steve Corey. And we're going to get a follow-up report on trash or treasure. That sounds so exciting.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you for allowing us to come up here. As promised previously, we are here to go ahead and,
Sorry, Steve. That'll lift, you don't lean over.
I don't know, I kind of like that,
we are here to go ahead and present a report on the Trash to Treasures project that we did earlier this year. And I am going to turn this over to the chair of that project, of that subcommittee, and a guy that made it happen, Brett Baranko. So with no further ado, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Brett, for being here.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I really appreciate you guys allowing me to come back and present the update. Steve, thank you very much for the introduction. Going into it, Trash or Treasure once again did happen on April 29th and April 30th. It was a Saturday and Sunday weekend event. To give you a recap of what happened, it was a creative and community-involved program that promotes repurposing items to divert from landfills, to conjoin Trash or Treasure with spring cleanup. And again, it was on April 29th and 30th, and the HOAs that were involved were Bernie Glen, Copper Basin, and Havasu Creek. And the cost for this event to the city was $0, thanks in large part to Republic Services. We did create a video. Last time we were not able to play it. I just wanted to show that by the end of the event, we did have about 92 views on that video. Keep in mind, maybe 20 or so were us checking up on it, just seeing what it was about and everything. But 72 would be a great way that the video was, in my mind, a success to give people the knowledge of what the program was about. We did have flyers, both electronic and physical. Again, these were purchased by Republic Services. We did have a pre-flyer that electronically was sent out by the HOA board members via email, Facebook, Nextdoor, and that was on Friday, March 31st, and that's the bottom little flyer right there. The flyer on the left, that electronically was sent out by the HOA board members to the email, Facebook, and Nextdoor on Saturday, April 15th, as well as the physical flyers were inserted by a few of us throughout the neighborhood on April 15th as well. We also had vertical flyers, 6 of them that were purchased by Republic Services. They were put up on Locust Grove and Star, Locust Grove and Red Rock, Heritage Woods and Star, Tempest and Red Horse and McMillan, Meridian and Halpin. We believe that these were a success, that if you got lost, you were able to find that, then you knew that you were in the vicinity to be able to participate in Trash or Treasure. And those were erected on Wednesday, April 26th. Show you a few people that we were able to capture stealthily. Don't take this back,
People digging
Lieutenant
through
Leslie.
garbage.
But being able to see them going through and finding a few things, the gentleman in the middle, I got to personally talk to him, and he was just sitting on the couch on that weekend and realized that that was going on, so he got to go out and find a few trinkets himself, so he was pretty happy with what he was able to find. A lot of stuff was put out on the side of the road, from furniture, bikes, a lot of barbecues and exercise equipment. And I think I missed the memo. People are losing weight, and I wouldn't be able to get rid of my exercise equipment, that's for sure. A lot of other stuff too, just you wouldn't believe what you were able to find out there. And some things were taken. This was a house that I did come across multiple days. I was able to relocate or re-find and see what was the progress of the items that were out there. Got to see that they had a baby stroller, exercise equipment, a table, painting, and a kid's sandbox. And later that night, I saw that the sandbox and the exercise equipment was all that was left. And the next day, I even saw the sandbox that was gone. So it was fun getting to see the progression of things being taken. And even with my wife, when we were going through the neighborhoods, getting to see what was being taken and the activity, she actually yelled at me to stop, pointed her finger, and we were able to find the sandbox in its new home. Multiple other items we were able to see get to be reduced throughout the neighborhoods. Got to see the filing cabinet and potting, or the pots taken away, as well as these tires.
Oh.
A lot of toys, chairs, furniture, barbecue set. And this one, the toys were taken, the ottoman, as well as some chairs were taken, as well as a lot of boxes of clutter. These ones were also taken as well. I did not get an after picture, but I was not able to find them again.
There was a
So,
wheelbarrow? Oh my gosh. I would have taken that.
funny story. I did leave that, but I regretted it to this day because I told my wife, you know what? That would be a great decoration to have in my yard, and was never able to find it again.
I know, that's a cool one.
This I did find. I just wanted to show everyone. My wife found it. She wanted to keep it. And we were going to make it into a little Lego table. We realized I have a 15-month-old daughter, and by the time she could use Legos, it might not be big enough. So we've just used it for a table for her to have in our backyard to have when we have barbecues with us. There were some issues being a pilot year that we ran into. Some was that some of the smaller items were not properly put into the waste receptacles. So the garbage collectors did have to go out and manually bring them in, which cost a little bit more of time. As well as with spring cleanup, you are required to call in larger items, and a lot of people did not read that, the fine print with spring cleanup, to follow those regulations. So Republic Services had to work extra time to try and get all that stuff taken care of and take care of the Meridian civilians. I did make a survey to try and get a capture of what people felt about the event. We did have 52 out of 488 residents respond to it. That was 10.7% response. Being over 10%, I do believe that was a victory in this survey, as much as possibly that you can get. The first question was, did you participate in the event? 39 out of 52 people did say yes. With those 39 people, 24 did place items out to the curbside. 1 found specifically just a treasure. 12 placed items out curbside and found treasures. And 2 people were looking through the neighborhood trying to find something for them. And this is a list of some of the things that they were able to take. It's just a vast array of different things for different reasons. I do believe that potting cart, Madam Mayor, is the lucky person who found that wheelbarrow. The people who did not participate, some of the reasons were timing conflicts, they were out of town, and they did not know what the event was about. Even with the flyers, the banners, the video, everything we could, people still were not able to find information on it. Out of the 39 people that we asked if they would do it again, 37 said yes. 1 person said heck yes. And 1 person did state that not if it cost them any more money for the garbage pickup, but they did not know that the garbage pickup for spring cleanup is already on the bill. So that would be 39 out of 39 people would like to participate again. Out of the 12 that did not participate, we asked if they would participate in the future. 5 said yes, 2 said no, 4 said maybe, and the 1 stated that they would bring it to their tenants' attention. With that said, 85% of the people who did the survey said that they would like to do it again. If we do include the maybes, that would be 92%. We did get some positive feedback, a lot of it just saying that they love the idea, they love participating, and they had a great time and they'd like to see it again. Excuse me, there we go. Just some general feedback. We did get, again, that people would like to know more about it. They might have been out of town during the event. It did take place during some of their yard sale events, so that kind of brought confusion, as well as possibly brought more stuff for spring cleanup to pick up during that time. There was also the confusion of people thinking that it was a waste, that it should go to charity, but more and more the charity organizations have stricter guidelines that they're refusing a lot more stuff, and they just need to be taught the purpose of this program. That's not for the charitable items, it's for the stuff that's below that to try and give it a second chance. Which again, with Stony Plain, it's taken them 10 years to get it up and running. So this was a pilot year, and I do believe it was a success. And I did present these results to the Solid Waste Advisory Commission, and they received it very well. They voted unanimously for me to come to you and let you know that they wish to continue for another year with this program. They will keep the subcommittee going, and we will continue to work and convene and work out the kinks from this pilot year. And City Council will be advised of what we come across, what we decide. And with that, I would like to thank City Council, Madam Mayor, again for allowing me to come here and have this first event happen with successful results. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, this was such a unique and innovative program. So where'd the idea come from?
So the idea came almost a little more than a year ago. My brother-in-law passed away, and my wife, Chal, and I went to Stony Plain, Alberta, Canada, and got to see what they went through with Trash or Treasure. And with my sister-in-law's loss and needing to move back to the States, it was a great opportunity for her to get rid of a lot of her things, and I got to see the entire community involvement with it, and it was just really neat to see. I thought my city might be interested in it as well.
Well, thank you for bringing back good ideas. I always love to rip off good ideas. So, council, any questions?
Just thank you very much.
Certainly in Genesis neighborhood, or Councilman Milam's neighborhood, you all participated, so I think you added a little bit of feedback last time, but
Yes, Madam Mayor.
anything to add?
I did participate in this event. I did fill out the survey. I thought it was a great program. I walked around my neighborhood, and there were a lot of people in my neighborhood participating. And I think that they did a really good job for getting the information out and repetitively sending the flyers out to through Nextdoor and through our HOA to our email. So I think in our neighborhood, a lot more people knew about it and participated. I recognize a lot of that stuff in your pictures. I think you got there after the stuff was already from my yard was already taken, but it was great, and it was a great team effort and a great project. And do we need a motion to allow this to continue forward, or?
Madam
Is it
Mayor,
just
members of the council, I think we're going to go ahead and work up some details, and we'll come back with those adjustments and details, and then we'll ask for permission at that point.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you,
Well, we
though.
won't jump the gun then.
Thank you for all of your hard work, and I know it took a lot, but I think for a pilot program for a very first year, I think it was very successful, so.
I could not have done it without the subcommittee members that I had with me. They're the steam behind the engine, that's for
Great team
sure.
over there.
Yep.
Small but mighty. Yeah, thank you. This was fun, and look forward to next year. I'll go shopping.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, under department reports, 7A, we have our Community Development Department. Hey, Terry?
Yes. Oh, okay. Pardon my inexperience here. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Terry Ricks. I'm with Community Development, and I'm basically here to provide you with an overview or an introduction of a new uniform street name and address number ordinance. And right out of the gate, I'd like you to know that we are not here seeking your approval for this draft, but we are seeking your input and direction, guidance from you regarding how to go forward. As a means of a brief overview, would like to discuss our current 1974 ordinance. Now, that is a whole long time ago, 43 years. There isn't much to discuss, but we will discuss that. 1974 versus 2017, then and now. What was life like in Meridian then, and what in our country, and what is it like now? We'll go over the continued growth and development in the city and county, partnering with our neighbors in public safety, with neighboring cities in the county, and what can we do to help? I would like to discuss standard addressing guidelines and consistency between agencies, how important that is. Would like to discuss the numerous agencies solicited for input in this draft, the highlights of our ordinance draft, and we won't go over every part, but just name a few things. And then, of course, at the end, would like to seek your counsel and direction. If we could go back down memory lane a little bit to 1974. Well, our ordinance, I didn't even know what to say about our current ordinance, other than it consists of 8 pages. It was originally codified in 1974, and it had a very minor update in 1999. It's extremely vague regarding variances and appeals. It's extremely vague in most areas, but it was more than likely very sufficient for our small population at that time. 1974 versus 2017. Now, I'm a wordy person, and so I just got carried away, and I had to reduce my slide. But I was in high school in 1974. That's how long ago this was. But in 1974, gas prices shot up to 55 cents per gallon due to the 1973 oil crisis. The average price of a new car was around $3,500. The population of Meridian was between 3,000 and 5,000 people. And Councilman Byrd was in here before we began, and he knew that right off the bat, that in 1974 we had 3,000 people. He didn't have to look at anything. The population of Boise was between 75,000 and 100,000, and maybe Councilman Byrd would know the exact number, but that's as close as I was able to get. Now, fast forward to 2017, the average gas price is $2.36 a gallon. Now, this is in the country, not necessarily in Meridian. The average price of a new car or truck is just under $34,000. The population of Meridian is nearing 100,000, and the population of Boise is over 205,000. Although the cities in Ada County were once separated by many miles of fields and pasture and desert, they are no longer separated. In some cases today, a structure literally next door to us can be occupied by a Boise business or a county resident. In the 90s, we were the fastest growing city in the state, and today we are among the fastest growing cities in the entire country. We are in population today where Boise was in the late 70s. Partnering in public safety, what can we do to help? Ada County Emergency Communication Center now provides 911 service to 12 different public agencies within the county, spanning 4 separate addressing grids. 911 answers approximately 1,100 emergency and non-emergency calls per day and coordinates movement for all fire and police departments within the county, in addition to Ada County paramedics. I tend to harp on 911. And why do we care about 911? We have our own police and fire department, but 911 is the beginning of an emergency. That's where it all starts, and our police and fire departments are totally dependent on the 911 system. To become partners in public safety, we need to more efficiently help 911 dispatch in their efforts to help us. We can provide consistency in the methods we use in assigning addresses and approving street names. Oftentimes, I've used the term standard addressing guidelines, and I generally use it when I'm trying to explain to a developer or a contractor or someone why we do what we do, why we assign addresses the way we do, why they have to have street frontage, why we can't just name a street whatever we wish. Addressing guidelines do serve a purpose, but they really lack teeth to be applied consistently without a coordinating ordinance. Although the city retains final approval, other agencies are a vital and important part of the review and recommendation process. They have been, and they will continue to be even more so. Consistently applying the same standards in addressing and street naming with the county and those around us will result in less confusion for dispatch, which means emergency responders will find less confusion, and general public will be served better. Excuse me. Our ultimate goal in drafting this new ordinance has been to seek consistency with our neighboring communities and the agencies to facilitate emergency response efforts. And in previous public hearings where we have had requests for variances and appeals regarding street names, you, the council, have given us direction, and we've included that. We've also taken into consideration NENA standards, and NENA is the National Emergency Number Association, which we are compliant with. We've requested input, received input and review from Meridian Police and Fire, Planning, Legal, 911 Dispatch, Ada County Assessor's Land Records Division, and ACHD. And we've also sought the input from the BCA Developers Council and are awaiting their response. Basically, the highlights of our new ordinance are staying as consistent as we possibly can to the Ada County guidelines. While our emphasis is on the city of Meridian, we don't live on an island, and we are tightly connected with those around us. While we want to remain consistent with their guidelines, we also know that there are unique instances that will come up, and they will qualify for a variance request to the P&Z Commission and also provide for a limited right of appeal to council. Along with that, we have parameters built in, better guidelines for P&Z and council. So when we ask a question, when someone appeals, we're providing better information for the applicant as well as council and the commission. In the cases, one thing we've included are cases we've had in the past. You have recommended to us that we set conditions so that these things can be answered in the future. Those things are included in our new ordinance. Again, you have the ordinance before you. We won't go through all the points of the ordinance, but we do hope the highlights will interest you. And we thank you for your time. Again, we'll come back when we have received input from the builders and contractors, developers, and also if we have other information from you, we'll come back at that time with a final draft for approval. But do you have any questions?
Council, any questions?
I don't at this time.
Can you give any examples of what's broken?
What's broken is that in 1974, we had very few streets. We had very few addresses. Since that time, we have added hundreds of new streets, hundreds of new subdivisions, thousands of addresses. 911 used to provide services, I believe, for the county, but the city of Boise had their own dispatch system. Now they include the city of Boise, all these different public agencies. And with the growth and development, not only, a lot of times I am always thinking of Meridian's growth, but Boise's had growth, obviously. They've grown to 205,000 people, and CUNA's grown, Eagle's grown. And Ada County Dispatch is dispatching to all those areas, and we are expecting them with our street name duplications and address grid. Sometimes the address grid numbers will overlap. It can be very, very confusing, even though we're in different cities. And so this is an attempt to bring our guidelines into, I won't say compliance with Ada County, because Ada County actually took some things that we had developed and worked on and incorporated them into their newest revision of their ordinance last year. But hopefully it's a 2017 answer to a 2017 Meridian.
So when dispatch is dispatching emergency personnel, are they not giving the city. We have duplicate addresses, so they don't know what city they're being dispatched to.
Oddly enough, that does happen. I know it's hard to believe, but it isn't uncommon that we have police and fire dispatched to the wrong city. It's not uncommon that we have police dispatched to South Meridian Road, but it might be in Eagle, not Meridian. We have all kinds of mix-ups. There are some things that, for example, Fairview and Cherry Lane, there are certain roads we're not going to mess with. It would be too cumbersome, it would be too difficult for our existing residents. But what we can do is make a change so that we're not repeating our errors. And so what we want to do is not have street names that are the same as somewhere else in the same addressing grid. We don't want to, if the new street name is being requested, we don't want that to be a street name that exists now in Boise or Kuna or Eagle. If it sounds like something already existing, not only just in Meridian, but in the county, we don't want to approve it. Basically, what we're doing is everything we can to help dispatch on their end. And even though fire and police are very well equipped to know where they need to go in our city, they're not the only ones responding to our emergencies. And it first has to get out of dispatch. So what we're trying to do is kind of level the playing field, and when a call goes in, we're limiting the amount of errors a dispatcher can have.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum?
as much as it seems to make common sense in some ways, I'd like to hear the weigh-in from the police and fire department, whether that's today or next time when it comes back to us. I'd like to hear what they think of that. Verity, do you have an opinion?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Mylum, obviously we have an opinion. There are instances, I can think of just one off the top of my head. Cherry Ave, for example, is one that exists in Boise City as well with the same addressing grid. So the caller may not recognize where they're at, depending on what kind of crisis they're in, and if they give a physical address. We have been dispatched to situations before that were actually occurring in Boise on a few occasions. Most of the software we have now in the computer-aided dispatch system does a pretty good job of being able to pinpoint those locations. GPS technology now in most cell phone calls, landlines kind of have went away. So there are other avenues and other ways for us sometimes to pinpoint where the caller is calling from. But there is confusion if there is a street with the same addressing code, 1,000 block of Cherry Ave here and in Boise as well, can create some confusion. But for the most part, I think it works fairly good currently with the technology the way it is. But same names is complicated if it has the same 100 block.
Does fire have anything to add?
Madam Mayor, I agree with Lieutenant Leslie. We found too that sometimes the numbering sequence, houses will go up by 6s, and then the next block will go up by 12s, and then it's just very random. And if that could be a little more systematic, it helps us find the houses quicker as we're going down the street, if we know that they're going up by a certain numerical value in the same neighborhood. So and I think that's one of the improvements that will come with the new ordinances. So yeah, that would be a welcome change for the future, especially as we grow. I mean, I came from a community that was 300,000, and we started much like Meridian at 35,000. And having those in place early in the system really helped us deliver our response in quicker and more systematic way. So I do agree.
Thank you. So just one last question. Is this from to stay moving forward, or are you talking about readdressing?
No,
Oh, thank
oh,
you.
Madam Mayor, sorry.
That
no.
would be a nightmare.
I want to emphasize the no. We're not talking about readdressing. We're talking about making a change going forward. We've had standard addressing guidelines that we've pretty much followed through the last, I don't know how many years, 5 or 6 years. We can be pretty consistent, but really without the ordinance to back us up. You know, when we come up against a hard place, we're left dangling because we have these standard addressing guidelines, but nothing in the ordinance. And so our desire is not to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to inconvenience the residents or the tenants, the business people. What we want to do is help police and fire. We want to help dispatch, help our police and fire and emergency response personnel. We want to be a good neighbor to Boise, to the county. And going forward, we need to not only, I looked at the growth from 74 to now, and I think 43 years from now, where will we be? Hopefully, we won't be looking at an ordinance that was codified in 2017. Hopefully, we'll be more up to date at that time too. But our point is that we want to, going forward, make sure that we're not providing things that would be inconsistent with county addressing standards and dispatch. I also, Madam Mayor, I would like to say that we are, in the past, our ordinance for uniform street name and address numbering has been in conflict with the UDC, and planning would be requesting an amendment to the UDC to bring it all in compliance with each other.
Awesome. Well, I think this council looks forward to having it come back and hearing from the BCA and having them weigh in and see what their feedback is, and then looking at it for adoption.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, also under community development, I believe that Caleb is the next presenter. Item 7B is regarding attachment of sidewalk barriers in our downtown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Madam Mayor, you weren't here last week, but it's pretty successful in proposing a code amendment to the council, and so we thought we'd come back this week with another proposed code amendment. So, no, that's a joke. Sorry, no.
Strike while the iron's hot.
We knew it was.
So this one hopefully is a little bit cleaner, more straightforward.
Certainly, we don't have as many people in the audience.
Yeah.
So.
This one is actually in Title 8, not in Title 11. It's under the Public Ways section of City Code. Currently, we have 3 different zones. We call the use zone, the clear zone, and the street furnishing zone for basically the sidewalk realm downtown. In the use zone, which is what it sounds like, it's to allow the adjacent property owner or tenant the ability to put some things out on the sidewalk area to use as kind of an extension of their storefront or their restaurant or whatever. We currently allow non-permanent or movable things out there, so you can't place anything more permanently in the sidewalk itself. So this would allow amenities or barriers or fences in this case to be affixed to buildings, to other streetscape improvements to kind of secure them in the ground. So again, barriers is the main amenity. We classify that as amenity. It doesn't require that be secured that way, but it allows it to be that way. So the proposed change would be to allow a permanent installation of barriers downtown with a use zone encroachment permit. What we would require if a business owner or proprietor wants to install a barrier in the sidewalk or affix it to other streetscape improvements or buildings is a plan. And with that plan, the director may require a surety may require, as a condition of approval, that it be put back in the same manner that you found it before you installed the barrier. So if the sidewalk's damaged, you got to fix the sidewalk as you, cut the bolts off to remove this in the future, that you make it again flush or whatever those requirements may be. So a lot of mays in this. There's discretion in this from the director to require a surety to make sure that construction goes well. It's pretty straightforward, and again, there's just about 10 lines of change. I didn't even make any slides for this presentation today. I did share the proposed changes with MDC, Ashley, and then the MDBA. Marty Schindler is here, and Nick were both informed of these changes. I've talked to Marty a little bit about it, but I don't think he has any necessarily concerns, but he's here, and if you will, Madam Mayor, Council, I think he does want to address you, and would stand for anybody else in the audience that has any comments on this. But again, pretty straightforward. We're trying to help here and allow, again, where a business wants to put in a barrier, allow them a means to actually secure something in the public realm. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
I guess my only question is, I believe the fencing that had been out in front of Busted Shovel was just a stand. They didn't drill it into the sidewalk. Wouldn't it be less disruptive to have them attach it to their building instead of the sidewalk, so that if there's damage done, we don't have public hazards or nuisance?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I fully intend, if as these businesses talk with us, because they'll have to fill out an application, certainly want to encourage them that direction to either figure out another way to affix it again, maybe even to their building. That can keep it fairly secure if you put the bolts in to the side of the building. Maybe there's something else. Just walking downtown Boise a couple weeks ago, a lot of those are loose. They've got a plate that that's on the sidewalk that keeps them from tipping over, and it keeps them fairly secure. But I mean, if you push on it, you can move it. But they do wrap, at least some of them wrapped, like the the lights, rope lights kind of through them to kind of keep them all together in panels. So I guess to answer your question, Madam Mayor, I would encourage folks to not use that as the first resort to go drilling into the sidewalk. But if that's something they're concerned about, they certainly, again, it's an option for them to do so, provided we're comfortable with the ways that they're going to construct it, and that we're set for when it goes away, that we've got some assurance that it'll be, again, put back the way they found it. So that's kind of how I envision this working out. We'll have a dialogue.
Okay. Council, any questions?
I have none.
Marty, do you have any comments? Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Neri.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I only have one slight concern, I think, from a risk standpoint, because we do occasionally get tort claims in regards to activities on the sidewalk or injuries that occur on the sidewalks. And sometimes there are responsibilities, sometimes there are not. But the idea, as you're mentioning, about attaching it to the building is probably safer from the city's perspective, because I think everything in this ordinance that Caleb and legal have coordinated to put together works really well as long as the business is still there. If the business vacates, they're probably not going to be real concerned about taking this stuff down or removing it. And so if the next owner doesn't want it and they take these things out of the sidewalk, most of them are attached by a bolt that is driven into the sidewalk. And so we were talking about it this morning, and those sometimes aren't removed. They're not, sometimes just cut down and sheared off and ground down to the same level as the sidewalk. Well, and someone has to do that, because otherwise you're going to have bolts sticking up out of the sidewalk. And that's my only concern, is that all of this is really geared towards assisting the businesses that are there, but I'm just really a little bit concerned about what happens if they vacate and don't remove any of this stuff. That will then fall on the city to have that done or have it removed if the next property or tenant doesn't want to use that space. So that's one thing that maybe we need to talk about a little bit more internally, but that's one thing that came to my mind today, that we haven't really addressed that yet, so. Attaching to the building doesn't cause that, so.
Good point.
Okay, feedback from council.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
Bill brought up an awful good point on that. I know the ones over in Boise, a lot of them are secured and a lot of them aren't. You can secure them down to the cement with a little deal that just take the screw out and it's even there, but you have to fill it up. And when you start working on concrete, if you take it out, then you're got the moisture and stuff going in. So I don't know. I think we need to maybe look. Bill brought up a real good point of when the existing owner leaves, what's the new one do?
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum.
I was sitting here thinking the same thing. However, this being a last resort type of way of putting the fences up, it seems that there could be something that we can do, whether it's have them put a deposit down, depending on the project they're doing, based on how many holes they're drilling, figure out how much it's going to cost. And then when they sell their business or at some point in time, they get that back. I mean, I don't know how else to guarantee that they would cover the cost of removing that. I also have no idea how much the cost is, so it might be such a small amount that it's not worth even worrying about, or it might be great. So those questions, I think, need to be answered.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Laura Roberts.
I'm thinking that we definitely want to explore it further, because as we're trying to work on downtown and revitalizing it, one of the ways that we can help participate in that is give businesses opportunity to be outside and have, that energy that's outside. When we've mentioned Boise several times, when you're walking around and things are downtown and people are outside dining and having beverages and things like that, it just encourages that energy and things. And I think that's one of the things we're really trying to do downtown, is encourage that energy. And so I'd like to figure out, really work on how we can protect the city and still make this happen.
Madam Mayor?
Mr.
I
Borton.
couldn't agree more. I wouldn't worry about the cost of getting it out. I mean, the intent should be to incentivize and make it as easy as possible for downtown businesses to provide this amenity for the public. So we will continue to review it and see what problems may occur, but whatever we can to make it as easy as possible for businesses to get these things up, I think that's where we ought to be focused. So the idea of a surety and posting deposits might be unnecessary barriers to encourage that type of development of their business.
And Madam Mayor? Yes. If I may, we had those same conversations as we were drafting this, and we didn't want to go too far with, yes, we want to limit risk to the city, but we also want to encourage this to happen, and we didn't want to have too many things where now it's cost prohibitive for a business. We hope no business goes out of business downtown. So holding $500 for 20 years or 30 years, or who's going to remember that they even deposited it? So we had those conversations. At the end of the day, I appreciate Mr. Neri's comments, but at the end of the day, the other attorney that I worked with, said, we kind of balanced that, and that's where we ended up, was not requiring it. Certainly, if you want to, we can, but that's sort of along Councilman Borton's train of thought, was let's not make this too difficult to get it in. Although I'll go back to my comments that I had for the mayor previously. We hope we don't even have to use this, because we're just talking about when someone wants to do it permanently. And we'll try to encourage them to put it into their building or somewhere else instead of the sidewalk first. But I understand, as a taxpayer, I don't really want to have to pay to fix that either. So there's a line there. But I just wanted to let you know we had that conversation internally as well.
Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I think we need to get Caleb to get this with legal drawn up with the ideas that's here. And, we've really, as Ann said, we really promoted this for downtown, and Let's don't make it a stumbling block for them. Let's let them get it going. Let's give it a try. It's been very successful in Boise, Idaho.
Okay, we look forward to seeing how you draw it all up.
So, Madam Mayor, just a little more direction than if I can. We have, we have a draft ordinance in front of you, so, yeah, I don't know what else.
So I guess, council, any changes to it? I was wondering how you were going to do that without, with
Madam Mayor?
Ms.
So,
Mylum.
and again, like, I agree, I don't want to put up extra barriers to businesses. And chances are, if somebody sells a business and it's a restaurant, it's probably going to remain a restaurant. The new owners are going to want that there anyway. But it would just be nice to know, what is the cost of that before we just toss our hats out? Do you have any idea? Is that $500? Is that the cost that you mentioned, or?
Madam Mayor, Councilwoman Mylum, it kind of depends, and that's this process. It depends on how they're, how many bolts are going in, how they're affixing it. Is it, are they saw cutting? Are they drilling? Is it an epoxy in the hole with the bolt and we could shear it off or just saw cut it off at grade? Is it going to be a full removal of that section of concrete? I mean, there's a lot of variables that probably go into that, but at the time of proposal, we would get an estimate of what it would, estimated costs, and hold a surety for at least that first year to make sure it doesn't fail. I'm thinking, just to ballpark something, it's not going to be in the thousands of dollars. I mean, if we have to re-pour the concrete, yeah, now we're talking bigger dollars, but it's going to be, in the hundreds of dollars, and we probably even have in-house staff. Again, if we're talking about just, saw cutting off or grinding it down to grade, it could probably be done with existing resources, probably. But again, it does depend on what's being installed.
Madam Mayor?
Ms.
Well,
Mylum.
that sounds doable to me, and you guys are going to be the ones approving the plan, so.
Marty, please join us.
See what the DBA says.
Okay, well, don't talk until you get to the microphone. If you'll please state your
Martin
name.
Schindler,
you.
property owner, 126 East Idaho Avenue.
Thank you.
Let me back up a second if you may mind, Caleb, just to help planning out here a bit. But maybe a simple way to do it is to come up with a typical section for adherence to the concrete, which I really truly believe the plate idea is a great one. Typically on the length, the run of that railing, there may be some security that may need to answer Bill's question for risk management on your side of the equation. There are calculations out there that already feed that. I'd be glad to help Caleb with that, supply him some information to support that. But I would think that the removal side of it would be held to the individual tenant, because as a property owner, I wouldn't want to sign for what they're doing, but I would make sure that on the recourse of when their lease was up, or if they terminated the lease, that there is some money, some funding to support taking it down and putting it away, throw it in the trash, whatever it may be. Hopefully it could be recycled, but that's hard to say. But I think there is a set of typicals already in place that we're headed down the road for the style, the design of it, so we don't get an eclectic look throughout the city of different railing styles would be also one of my desires. Personally, I'm talking now. But also we have talked with city planners about that, is how, how does that take place? And I know we're all kind of stretched for time, but I see, hopefully, and I'm talking a little ahead of myself here, but on behalf of the DBA, that at some point, as we expand our membership base and our supporting group, that we'll be able to take some of these responsibilities along with the city to help to oversee design, because I just don't see at typical levels that we have today with the amount of employees at hand to take all these over-the-counter applications. And maybe later on, Dave, we could help assist with that process to oversee a design, have an architectural committee that actually would take a second look at it for you, and then make suggestions to planners on our behalf of what we recommend. So those are things out in the future, but to answer the question at hand, I think a typical post standard would be desired, so we can come up with it. If it's $15 or $20 per post, per section, per linear footage, and some of those run as far as 10 foot in between posts, we can come up with a set of standards quickly to have a standard fee that's throughout the city core. That would be my suggestion.
So Mayor, just a couple of things that Mr. Schindler just brought up. So first of all, we do have already in the same section of code, design, it does need to be black wrought iron sectional fencing between 36 and 48 inches in height. That's it. It's not going to be eclectic. It's the standards already on the books. Yep. And the other point about a typical cross-section, we discussed that too with ACHD, and there isn't one. They don't have a typical. Again, you can put plates down, you can put, there's different ways to affix these that they would allow and approve. I guess I'm not opposed to having one standard, but we're going to get somebody in that doesn't like that standard and wants to do something else. So I don't see the benefit of adding that to this code. It doesn't address the question or the concern unless we're really going to encourage people to put these in the ground and say you have to put them in the ground. If we say you have to put them in the ground, I think we do have a standard. It says use 4 bolts that are this long and you go this deep in the concrete. And we explored that again, but ACHD didn't have one, and really, again, we don't even really want to see these in the concrete, so I'm not totally opposed to it, I just don't see the value in it.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
the only, Caleb, you come up with a good idea. You know, you can use a 12 or 14 screw with a lead plug, and you've only drilled 3/16 or a 1/4 inch hole. My main concern is just don't let them shoot them down with the ram sets or something like that, because then you are going to tear some concrete up if you ever take them down. As long as they're put down that way, I don't see any bit of problem with it.
He said.
Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Marty?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Beard.
Thank you for being here. Any other comments from anyone in our audience? Okay. Council?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Byrd.
I don't know if under section 2D or 2E, Caleb, this is a question for you. And asking for all that stuff, you think it's going to scare anybody off?
So, Madam Mayor.
Like you said earlier, who's going to remember that there's a warranty surety there?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Byrd, I hope not, and that's one of the reasons that I shared it with folks like Marty, is to look at it and say, hey, do any of these look too problematic? Again, saying, that's not the only side of that equation, but we'd like to know from your side, does this look too onerous? The second part of your question about, I'd hope in 1 year we can remember that. So for 1 year, we can track things. I get worried when it's 20 years later or even 5 or 10 years later to remember that. But this use zone encroachment permit is an annual permit. It's free. It's right now one of the only free applications that we offer in community development. But that's another, again, carrot. We're trying to encourage this type of stuff downtown. So we process it for free, but we also require you to come in and get it every year. So after that first year you've had it, you come in, we release your surety back, we issue you a new permit for the next year, assuming there hasn't been any problems. So that's why I'm not, from my perspective, I don't think this is too onerous, but you just ask somebody that wears the other hat to sit down, and he may have other issues, but I really haven't heard those as I shared it with him. And again, I don't know how much it was shared with other members of the MDBA, but we got it to Nick and said, hey, city's proposing these, any concerns, and I haven't heard any. There's a question about smoking within them, I think that came up, but that's not here. But other than that, no, I don't think, my personal opinion, no, I don't think this is too much to scare somebody away.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd?
with that, Caleb, I'd say if you feel comfortable with it, where these permits are only for a year, I'd say let's go for it. Let's get it going. Let's get some things out there.
Mr. Byrd, I appreciate that. I'm pretty confident if we get burned, I'll be right back before you. And, let's give them a little rope here and say, do the right thing. We're trying to help you out here, help us help you. But I'll be back here saying, you know what, we've had to repair 3 of these last year, and it's $1,000 a pop. Let's change the way we do this. I won't let it get to 3, but let's try it and see if it works.
Do her.
Madam Mayor?
Mr.
Can I ask
Board?
one question, Caleb? The strike-through language in 1B says, except as otherwise specifically set forth in this chapter. So, but I don't see any other strike-through language. So prior to this proposed revision, how was it otherwise set forth in the chapter that would have allowed permanent streetscape?
So, Madam Mayor, Councilman Borton, it's not. So there wasn't any exceptions to the rule. You just couldn't permanently put anything in the use zone.
But Madam Mayor, but our code, it had that phrase in it,
Except as otherwise specifically found.
never was otherwise provided in the chapter? Is that right?
I've got the code up here.
The only reason I ask is, it implied to me that we did it a different way before, and this is not new, it's just a change to how it was previously permitted.
So we do allow some things without a permit. I'm trying to see if any of those are actually permanent fixtures, chairs, planters, heating or cooling appliances, bicycle racks. It says movable bicycle racks.
And if it's nothing, that's fine, I just read as though there might have been something else.
I can follow up with you, Councilman Borton, but I, again, generally, things shouldn't, before currently permanently placed in the use zone, are not allowed.
So what I'm hearing, Caleb, is that there's general agreement to bring it back and move
Just
forward.
as an ordinance, or you want it as, okay. Thank you.
Okay, item 7C is under Public Works, a budget amendment. These next 3 are, so I will turn this over to Warren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor,
You
members of the
drew
council.
the short straw.
Well, I'm going to address 2 of them, but Lorelei's going to do the middle one. So this first item, item C, is a budget amendment, just a little budget amendment for about $1 million for the capacity project out at the wastewater treatment plant. As you know, we have started construction on that project. It's been going on now for quite a few weeks, and it's going quite well. But in our relationship and coordination with the contractor, we have been discussing some of the long lead item things that are in the project, as well as rising costs associated with some of the different materials that are out there because construction is increasing, as well as our need to make sure that this project is completed within the 30-month time frame that's allowed for this project. And in discussing those things with them, it's become apparent that it would be advantageous for us to move some of the money in this project a little forward in the timeline. So it's a 3-year project. We had, at the beginning of the project, estimated how much we would spend in year 1 and 2 and 3. And it's now becoming apparent that it would be advantageous for us to move some of that money forward. The overall cost of the project will not change. That's not what we're here to discuss. It's still the overall cost remains the same. But what we are talking about is moving some of the money up from later to earlier to make sure that we meet the timelines associated with the project and take advantage of pricing and so forth that we need now. To accommodate this, we have gone through and combed our existing budget for 2017 and looked for opportunities to reallocate funds from existing projects where we have saved some money, either because the projects have come in under budget or they have bid out significantly under budget. We also have a few where, because of some proposed development in the community, we've been able to essentially abandon projects that we had scheduled because development will allow us to do that. Developers are going to essentially, one of them was a lift station that we were going to do some improvements to. And now the development community is going to come along within the next couple of years and allow us to completely eliminate that lift station. So the money we had allocated for that, we no longer will need. We're going to just postpone that expenditure. So we're going to reallocate some funds to allow us to take this essentially little over $1 million out of this year's budget with a no net increase to the 2017 budget and essentially move some of that money up into this year that would have been spent in 2019 for this capacity project. And that's essentially what we're asking for, is your permission to do that. I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Warren. Council, any questions?
I have none, Mayor.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Borton?
So Warren, does the new expenditure accelerate the schedule, or does the new expenditure cover increased cost for the existing schedule?
I'm not,
Yeah, the reason I ask is if 2009 monies are moved forward to keep it on schedule and moving fast is sort of how it reads, that seems to imply that it's not necessarily capturing additional costs for the same work, but trying to get what might have been done in future budget years done earlier.
yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Borton. So essentially, the contractor is concerned, as are we, that with the current yearly annual expenditures that we had originally planned for, that it's going to put a lot of strain on that last year to complete a significant amount of work in a very short time period. Whereas if we can move that up into into earlier in the project, we can order some material that's long lead item stuff that is going to have an impact or could have an impact on the schedule. It'll also allow us to save some money in the project, or particularly the contractor to save some money because pricing on certain items is going up and up and up, especially pipe costs for HDPE pipe is really skyrocketing right now. And it's just going to allow us as a city to feel more confident and comfortable that we're going to be able to meet that 30-month timeline with the contractor. And that's pretty important to us because, as you know, we're growing incredibly fast once again. And so although we have created some space where we think we have plenty of time to get this project done before we need that capacity, it's not going to be very much after we get this project done that capacity is going to be necessary. So this is sort of providing some, a little insurance or a little buffer for us to make sure that we meet those timelines and that we have the project up, the system is fully running and functional before we actually need that capacity. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Madam Mayor, it did. It sounds like it is, to a certain degree, compressing the schedule in a good way, trying to get a little bit more done a little bit faster?
Correct.
Okay. So if all things being equal, the budget amendment, which I know were rough, relatively rough, but the fiscal year 2019 anticipated expenditure of $6.3 million, we should expect to see that be $5.1 million in 2019?
Yeah, so I'm going to look at my numbers here. So I guess the quick and easy way to answer that is the increase in the money that we're putting in this year will be a reduction in 2019. That's correct. So the overall cost is still $35 million and some change. It hasn't changed the overall cost of the project at all. Just taken the 2019 money and moved it up.
So it didn't add to it.
That helps.
It just moves money forward.
That helps.
helps. And Madam Mayor, that, okay, yep. Thank you. Thanks, Warren.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd?
anybody don't have any more questions, I think this is a good sign that JC is a little accelerated their schedule a little bit, and maybe we can get some decent costs on some pipe and stuff. So I would move that we approve the budget amendment for JC Contractors to the tune of $1,050,000.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts? Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 7D is also a public or a budget amendment for the repair of sewer infrastructure. Lorelei.
Hi. Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So what I'm bringing before you today is a no net increase budget amendment. And this is to repair cracked sewer service tees in the Tuscany subdivision. So what a sewer service tee is where the homeowner's line comes in and where it meets our main line. And the city is responsible for that section of pipe. So when Tuscany was constructed, that was back in 2005 to 2007, we allowed a different type of sewer service tee. Since the construction of Tuscany and realizing that sewer service tees put at those deep depths struggled with the pressure of the soil, we've since changed our requirements to require a more heavy-duty tee. However, now we're going back with our in-house program. We've been able to TV all of these sections and realize that these things were happening. And what a cracked sewer service tee will do is, the biggest problem is that it allows groundwater infiltration in. And that's clean water that enters the sewer system, that travels to the treatment plant, that takes up capacity, it takes up resources to treat. And so we try really hard to keep those out. Additionally, if those cracked sewer service tees get bigger, sewage can actually leach out and cause potential contamination. So our goal is to find those and fix them before that happens. So we were able to, earlier this year, fix 5 of these service tees. And we were able to look at our budget, and we think we can prioritize some of the spending for the rest of the fiscal year to fix the remaining 12 tees that are cracked in that subdivision. So what I'm asking for is approval of a no net increase budget amendment to essentially reallocate existing funds to cover this repair project.
Council, any questions?
I have none. Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd?
seeing no questions, I move we approve the budget amendment for fiscal year 2017, the amount of $60,316 for the repair of sewer infrastructure.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum? Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye.
All ayes. Okay, item 7E is under Public Works for approval of contract completion letter. And Warren is up.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you. So I'm kind of helping tag team this a little bit with Keith. He's obviously out this week, and so I'll try and explain this as best I can. The UV disinfection facility expansion project is one that we just completed this past year. But you may recall that at the very end of the project, the contractor for that particular project actually went bankrupt and left a small portion of the project unfinished, essentially some asphalt that needed to be put back in. So we had to initiate the bonding company who backed the contractor, bringing them into the project and work out a resolution with them to complete the balance of the work. And what has essentially happened with that asphalt work is they have, the bonding company has obtained a quote for the asphalt work and has paid the city the value of that quote, and then the city has obtained another quote to complete that work from the same contractor. Ironically, they gave us a better deal than they did the bonding company, but in any case, we are going to have that contractor come in and complete that asphalt work within the coming month. What this is really all about is we withhold a certain percentage of the invoices that the contractor submits all the way through the project. We call it retainage. And essentially, now that there is a resolution to this issue, we would, this is about releasing that retainage money to the bonding company. It's essentially letting that money that we've been holding on the project go back to the bonding company. So that's kind of what this is about, and that's what we're here seeking your approval to do, and that'll allow us to close this project out, get the asphalt finally taken care of, and then once this particular effort has been done, we will also be able to receive or close our agreement with the engineering firm, who will remain nameless, but who had an error in this project. They owe us about $300,000 that they will also pay us after this is all done. So we'll get that money back in addition. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Byrd.
Warren, my figures here, are we using asphalt or gold? It says $11,935,000.
That was the
No.
overall.
That isn't the amount of the
11,000.
budget
Couple
amendment.
extra zeros on there.
No, it's just 11,900.35.00.
Sub pennies.
It's some funky math there.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, there are a few extra zeros there. There's the Scrivener's error there, that's $11,900.35.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we approve the completion letter to travelers pertaining to the default performance system for the amount of $11,900.35.
Second. I want a 0 hundred.
Do you want to include the 35 cents? I
It's on
think
there.
you should.
there.
That's a set sum.
Any discussion? Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye.
All ayes.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
a future meeting topic, in case they might leave. Lorelei, thank you for the information in the packet. It'd be great to hear an update at a later date with the camera and the 2 trucks and the cleaning, and how the schedule has accelerated and where we're at with that at a future time. That was helpful here. Thanks.
Item 7F, we get an update on Paws in the Park, a wildly successful first annual event.
All right, make my way to the podium. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We have both mics now, and they're both seeming to work, so that's good. I'll use this one, I think. As the mayor said, the first Paws in the Park event was extremely successful. It was unexpectedly successful. We were surprised, astounded, and amazed, and happily surprised, actually, with the turnout of the amount of people we had at the park. I just want to show some pictures real quick before I get into the numbers of those that came and the number of licenses that we issued. We had a doggy photo booth at the event that dog owners could come and sit on this bench, that board behind them that says, "I love you" or "I heart you," because then the dog owners could write something about their pet if they wanted to. So you can see, "I heart you because you give good snuggles" there on the right. "I heart you because you love me" with all those dogs, or excuse me, on the left and on the right, "because you love me." We had vendors, both large and small, at that event. So on the left, in the foreground, is Percy's Bows. That individual, he said that he sold more bows at this 3-hour event than he was at another event that took place over an entire weekend, and he sold more bows for dogs at our event than he did over the entire weekend at another event. And in the background, I have another picture of Costco you can see, but in the background, Costco came to our event. And then we had some live music, some acoustic guitarists there on the right. There's another photo of Costco. They brought samples of all of their dog food, and then they did a big giveaway of that dog bed you see there in the corner. They gave that away to some lucky winner, the lucky winner of a drawing. The Meridian Canine Rescue, which is recently started but restarted under another name. They brought some dogs there, some adoptable dogs that individuals could interact with. There was a food truck, the Rusty Dog, there in the background. And then here's licenses. So you can see our staff there on the left, and then on the right, you can see the line of folks that were lined up to get licenses. So that kind of leads into the numbers game here. Total, we issued 224 licenses in that 3-hour time frame on that Saturday. I was thinking, the number I had in my head was 100. I thought, if we did 100 licenses, man, that would have been a great success. Others were, thought if we had 10 people show up, that would have been a great success. But no, 224 is what we issued. So that's 74 an hour. That's more than 1 a minute, obviously.
That's probably more than ever been issued here.
We had 4 stations, if you will, going nonstop. We had 2 computers, and then 2 that were handwriting licenses, and then we had a 5th once the line got really backed up. J.C. Holman jumped in every now and then when the line was just so long that we couldn't get to everyone, that we had a 5th line going every now and then. Of those 224, 32 had been in our system before. So they were repeat customers, if you will, but 192 were first-time licenses within our system that we issued that day.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
On that. That's awesome.
The feedback we've received has been mostly positive. We received 1 negative email before the event asking for a refund because they didn't know about the event, wanted a refund, and wanted to attend the event for free. And then we received some feedback from, there's a daycare that is right next to Story Bark Park. The owner of that daycare, he had posted signage saying no parking. Individuals had parked on his property anyway, so he was upset about that. There's a more deep-seated issue there. He's reported to the Parks Department before that dog owners there, while they're at the dog park, they will scoop up their poop, but instead of throwing it in the trash, they'll throw it over the fence into his property. So we've contacted him, we've spoken with him and the Parks Department, and want to work with him to mitigate what's happening there, obviously with dog owners doing that while they're at the dog park, but also get his feedback if we continue to do this event in the future, how he would be willing to help, what his ideas, suggestions are in terms of parking and accommodating that number of people. We weren't expecting that number of people, so anyway, we're in contact with him. From the vendors, we sent out an email asking for feedback from the vendors that were there. Did they think it was worth their time? Did they enjoy themselves? Did they do business like Percy Bowes did? I want to share one or part of an email we got back. We had Aussie Mobile Grooming. They're doing nail trimming for dogs. They were astounded at the event as well. So I'll read in part their email to us. They said they were overwhelmed with the success and turnout, totally unexpected. We had 2 groomers who worked constantly on nail trims. We averaged 1 trim every 6 minutes over the 3 hours without a single break. They also were pleased with our pre-event exposure over TV, radio, blogs, and print. We didn't pay for any TV advertising. We didn't pay for any radio advertising. We sent out a press release. Casey Emery, we worked with her to notify the media of what was happening. It did get picked up by some news outlets. Also, Shelley Houston, the marketing coordinator in the Parks Department, helped us advertise because the event was in a park. So with the help of those 2, we got lots of people out to the event, so we were happy with that. So with all this information, it is my recommendation, the council asked that I come with a recommendation of what to do in the future. We had a after-action meeting with the group that helped plan and execute this event, we do recommend that we continue this event or some version of it moving forward. It may not be free licenses every year, because then everyone's going to wait for the free licensing event, and then next year it's going to be 1,000 people getting licenses, or 2,000 licenses that we issue. But so we're working on maybe how it looks in the future, but obviously there is interest in dog licensing. For us, it was an opportunity to educate the community, the 192 that weren't in our system prior to that event. We felt like it was successful in bringing government and services to the people where they congregate. Dog owners like to congregate with other dog owners, and they like to be at the dog park. So we felt it was a great opportunity to bring our service out of City Hall, bring it to the dog park where they're going to be located, so we could offer the service of licensing there. So we will continue to work through some of the kinks that we did have, some of the details of an event like this moving forward, so it's not just free licenses every year. But we do think something like this, bringing the service out of City Hall at least once a year to where dog owners are located to license their dogs, is something worthwhile and worth our time. So with that, I thank you for allowing us to do this event this year, to explore this opportunity, and I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
You know, I'd first like to congratulate Shelley. I think this is the mastermind behind this event, and that you saw an opportunity to really build our license program. So I still think we need signage at the dog park that licenses are required. But next year, I guess I would like to see it where you can offer the licenses that they would have to pay. But anyone who has a license prior to the event, maybe the sponsors give some kind of a gift. You have some kind of a recognition, bag of dog bones, or dog biscuits, or something that is covered by the sponsors. But you're recognizing good behavior, just like we do with our dogs. They get a dog treat. But I think that way you are recognizing that they've licensed their dog, they're being a responsible owner, and we want to celebrate that. But that you still should offer the licensing in case someone forgot, but they don't get the dog biscuits or whatever. That would be my 2 cents.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
part of your exploration going forward, we had talked a little bit offline about the private nonprofit event that's in Kleiner Park 2 weeks prior, the Helping Hand Fund, which raises funds to the Canine Rescue and a few other entities that all support this, and it's a really big event, a whole bunch of activities, and whether or not what's provided here could become part of a private event that already exists versus the city having to run their own, at least explore the pros and cons of that.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Borton, we did discuss that very briefly at our after action with our group, that would be something that we would look at further if the event moved forward.
Okay, awesome.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Meyer.
I don't know if you covered it or not, CJ, but did you have an estimate for what you think would be the total number of attendees at this event?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Mylum, that was something.
Two-legged or four-legged?
Two-legged.
Two-legged. Well, that was something that I wanted, if I'd had an opportunity to get up and walk around at all, I was going to make some sort of estimate there. I never left that table, and none of us were able to because of the amount of people that we were trying to get through with licenses. So I can't even give you a guess. It was a lot. There was definitely more than just the people there getting licenses. I think what was nice about the event was there were those that came specifically for that purpose, but then there were those that came just to go to the dog park, and they saw, oh, hey, I don't have a license. I can get my dog licensed for free on this day. And so they came up to our table to do that. So there certainly were more than just the 224 or their owners that were there. It was a lot of people and dogs there for that 3-hour period.
Mayor. And so do the vendors pay a fee to participate?
They did not.
that might be another idea, if the vendors pay a small fee that would help cover the cost of the licenses at least. That way you're still able to do it, either a discounted license, or whether it's a free license or discounted or bonus for re-registering. But the whole idea, because the concept is great, and the whole idea is to get more dogs registered. It's not about the profits, but also there is a cost involved. So
Absolutely.
if you could get the vendors to cover the cost involved, and people can get their dogs registered, which is the whole point in the first place, I think it's a win-win. Just a thought.
Absolutely. This year, we had no idea what
Great
we
job.
would expect, but that's something for us to look at, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how many dogs do we have licensed?
I'm guessing that at the last look, I looked at that spreadsheet a few days ago, it was around 2,500, I believe.
We know there's more.
Great.
The estimation, somewhere between 17 and 20,000 dogs within the
I
city.
know.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Little Roberts.
Madam Mayor, CJ, it's probably a really strange question, but do you know how many years the average dog is licensed?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Little Roberts, I don't, but I can get that information and get that back to you if you'd like.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, just curious, because if we do give them a free license and then they continue licensing the dog, we're still way ahead of the game.
I think you can almost build a public education campaign too that, and this is, I guess, here is an argument in support of the free license, is because it saves considerable time finding the owner. At this point, you have personnel, when a dog is picked up, can spend up to 10 hours trying to locate the owner. And then if they're unable to, and it's not adopted out, of course, there's additional cost to what do you do with the dog. So there's definitely a cost that is minimized if you have the dog license and you can reunite it with the owner. So there is an argument for that. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.
And thank you, Shelley. This, we know that you have taken a personal interest in, it should be Shelley's Bark Park, not the Story Bark Park.
That's a good one.
But anyway, I appreciate the heart you put into this. It's awesome, so. Okay, next is the mayor's office. Smile.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The first item I have up before you today is a budget amendment from MIAC. This is our end-of-the-year budget amendment, which is from the funds that they've raised from their events throughout the year. It is also, they've recently secured verbal funding for their Youth Safety Summit later this spring from Idaho Power. So while we have not yet received those $5,000, we are getting near the time where we need to do our budget amendments. And if for any reason that money does not come in, we will not do the event like we normally do, but I have every assurance that the money will come in. So,
Well, we do expect it in September, is what I understand.
correct, yes. So with that, there's an amendment in front of you for $6,660 for additional spending authority for MIAC. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions from council?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd?
seeing none, I would move that we approve the budget amendment for MIAC, the amount of $6,660.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 7G. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts? Aye. Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye.
All ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. The second item you have up before us today is, as you all are aware, we recently did a city survey. The results of that survey are back, and we have Jason Murado here with ETC Institute, who was the company that did the survey on our behalf. He's going to run through a presentation for you on the results of that survey. Once he's done and you guys have asked any questions you have of him, I'll go ahead and hand out a copy of the survey results for you so you can have time to review it. And we will then hopefully give you an opportunity for the week and maybe come back next week to accept the results of the survey to give me time for any technical or other questions that may come up. Before he comes up, I'm just going to point this out to you from my very rough, poor math that I just did. 21,615. Anybody want to guess what that number is?
That's who
How many participants?
participated.
Oh,
Bingo.
21, that's funny.
Based upon
That's a
my
lot.
quick, rough math, and if I assume we have 30,000 households here in Meridian, which is close, and base our utility billing and the numbers, that could be the number could be used, but we'll double check that. But just I'll leave with that.
In my neighborhood, they all have 3.
That was a great little brain twister there, Robert. Well, welcome, Jason. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sitting through. If I would have known that that was you in the back, I would have moved this up on our agenda.
That's all right. I learned a lot of great information today about the city. But anyway, my name's Jason Morato. I'm a senior project manager at ETC Institute. And ETC is a marketing and research firm based in the Kansas City area. And the thing that we specialize in is doing citizen surveys for city and county governments all across the country. And it's great to be back in the city of Meridian. I was here 3 years ago to present the results of the first citizen satisfaction survey. And today I'm going to go through the results of the most recent survey. And this was administered in April and then partially in May. So really just got finished up. So ETC is based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. We've done this type of work for over 30 years, and since 2006, we've done surveys in over 900 communities in 49 states. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. So today I'll go through the purpose and methodology of the survey. Then I'll go over what I call the bottom line up front, which is really our main conclusions from the survey. And I'll go through the major survey findings to show how we came to those conclusions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any. So there's several reasons to do a survey like this. One is to objectively assess what residents think about city services, and also their perceptions of the city, and also what their priorities are for the city. Also with this survey, we're going to measure trends from the previous survey in 2014. There were a few new questions to this year and also a few questions we took out, but most of the questions are the same as they were 3 years ago. And then also with this survey, we can see how Meridian stacks up with the residents in other communities, both regionally and nationally. So this survey was 7 pages long. I mentioned it includes most of the same questions that we asked before. The survey was administered by a combination of mail, online, and phone to randomly selected households all throughout the city. And that's really our standard methodology for these types of surveys. Our goal is to get at least 500 completed surveys, and we had a really, really good response this year. Actually ended up with 743 completed surveys. Now, one thing we always do when we administer these surveys is as we're collecting the data, we check the demographics of survey respondents to make sure it reflects the actual population of the city. And we especially pay close attention to key areas such as age, gender, geographic location. So we had a really good distribution in all those areas. And the results of these 743 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error of plus or minus 3.6%. So essentially that means if we did this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 3.6% from what we're reporting. So the results aren't perfect, but really it's a very small margin of error. So here you can see we have a map of the city. The red dots are households that completed the survey. So we had a really good distribution throughout the city. And this looks very similar to what we had 3 years ago when we did the survey. So here's our major findings. We found that residents overall have a very, very positive perception of the city, and there's a lot of examples of that in the survey, but I picked out a couple here that really stand out. 93% of residents rated Meridian as either an excellent or a good place to raise a family, and 92% rated the city as an excellent or a good place to live. So really, just about everybody who surveyed felt that way. We also found that the city's moving in the right direction. Now, the results were really good 3 years ago when we did the survey. They were much higher than both regional and national averages in most areas. But this year, the results are even better. The positive ratings have increased in 64 out of the 84 areas that we asked last time as well. And we'll look at some of those in just a little bit. We also found that the satisfaction with city services is much higher in Meridian than it is in other communities. And that's no surprise because that was the case 3 years ago. And of course, this year the results are even a little bit better. And we'll look at these examples in a little bit. But the city rated above the U.S. average and also the mountain region average in 42 out of the 46 areas that we compared. And you'll see in a little bit that in a lot of cases it was much higher, 10, 15, even 20% or more. And then the area that really stands out the most is that the satisfaction with the overall quality of city services for the city rated 30% above the U.S. average, 25% above the mountain region average. And when we do these surveys, this is always a key area we look at because here we're asking residents to take into account everything that the city does. So this is really an overall satisfaction rating of city services. And then the top priorities for residents were roads, traffic and transportation, education and schools, and growth development. So the first area we'll look at is just some general perceptions of the city. Here we ask residents to rate their perception of the city, as you can see, in a number of different ways. And this question is asked on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being excellent, 0 is poor. So you can see here the dark blue are the 9s and 10 ratings, the lighter blue are 7s and 8s, so really the blue are the positive ratings. And every graph asked with this 11-point scale has the same format. A rating of 4 to 6 is the white, so that's kind of average. And then a rating of 3 or less is poor, which is the red. So a couple things stand out here. One is that the positive ratings far outweigh the negative, really in just about every single area. The only exception is providing mobility options other than driving. For everything else, more than 60% of residents gave positive ratings, 12% or less negative. And the items that really stand out are those two at the very top. You can see just about everybody who answered the survey feel good about the city as a place to raise a family and also as a place to live. So here's some quality of life questions. Here a 10 means that these items greatly exceed expectations. 0 means doesn't meet expectations at all. So again, positive ratings far outweigh the negative. The couple that stand out here the most are those bottom two ones. 80% of residents feel that customer service from city employees exceeds expectations. Only 5% feel like it doesn't. And then that bottom row, 79% of residents feel like the overall quality of city services exceeds expectations. And that's compared to only 3% who don't feel that way. And those numbers are much, much higher than what we typically see in other communities where we do these surveys. Here's some more comparisons for quality of life and perceptions of the city. Here, a 10 means residents strongly agree with these statements. 0 means they strongly disagree. Again, the positive ratings far outweigh the negative. The lowest rated item on this list is the city managing growth wisely. But even for that, you have 55% positive ratings compared to only 18% negative, so more than a 3-to-1 ratio of positive to negative. You can see the highest rated item is the quality of shopping and entertainment being accessible. Then the other item that really stands out here to me is that fifth one down. You can see that 69% of residents feel like the city's headed in the right direction compared to only 10% who don't. So about a 7-to-1 ratio of those who feel the city's headed in the right direction versus those who don't. And that's also a much better ratio than what we normally see. Normally about 2 or 3 to 1 is considered about average. And then here we ask residents to rate major categories of city services. You can see here the 10 is excellent, the 0 is poor. Again, the positive outweighs the negative in all of these areas. The lowest rated item is planning and zoning services. But even for that, you have 56% positive ratings compared to only 17% negative. And the items that are rated the highest, if you just start at the top of the list, fire and rescue services, city parks, garbage, trash, and pickup services, and police department and law enforcement. And then here we asked residents about the value received for city tax dollars and fees. 10 means that residents definitely feel like they're getting their money's worth. 0 means they're definitely not. So you can see here that 72% of residents feel like they're getting their money's worth for their city tax dollars and fees, compared to only 6% who don't feel that way. So a 12-to-1 ratio of residents who feel like they're getting their money's worth versus those who don't. And that's also much, much higher than what we normally see. And then here we have a map of the city. And what we did here is we broke the results down into 4 different regions: the Northeast, the Northwest, the Central, and then South Meridian. And we took the average rating for residents in each one of those 4 areas, and then shaded that area the appropriate color. So this map is for the overall quality of city services, and you can see the entire map is the same color, that light blue. So that means the overall quality of city services exceeds expectations in all parts of the city. And it also means the city is really doing a good job providing services equally in all 4 areas. Now, we did a map like this for every question that's asked on that 11-point scale. So it's over 100 maps overall, and it's really a great way to look at the data in more detail geographically. So we also found that the city's moving in the right direction. So here what we have, the blue line are residents for the 2017 survey who rate each item as a 7 or better, so the positive ratings. The yellow are the positive ratings from 3 years ago. And I put a blue arrow by the items where the ratings have increased by at least 4% since the last survey. Red arrow down means the ratings have decreased by 4% or more. And this graph here is for perceptions of the city. You can see there's 7 areas that have had a significant increase in positive ratings since the last survey. How well the city is ensuring public safety. The city is a place to work is up 8%. Building a strong sense of community, developing a strong local economy. The city is a place to do business. Communication with the community is up 9%. And then developing a strong local workforce. So a lot of increases related to the economy and business. The one area that did have a decrease of 4% was planning for future growth and development. Here are the comparisons for quality of life. No significant changes since the last survey, but for all 4 areas, there's been either a 2 or 3% increase. Here are more quality of life and perception areas. You can see here there's 4 areas that have had a significant increase. The quality of shopping and entertainment being accessible. Meridian has a sense of community. The city using tax dollars wisely is up 5%. And then the variety of employment opportunities is up 9%. And we did see a 9% decrease, though, in the quality of housing and a variety of options. And then these comparisons are for major categories of city services. Most of these areas saw a small increase, but there were 3 areas that had a significant increase: recreation programs, programs for youth, and communications. And then there was a 4% decrease in recycling services. Now, this table is specifically for public safety, and there's 12 different items here. For one item, the ratings are the same. For the other 11, the ratings have increased. So no decreases at all in any of these areas, which really is amazing. And there's 5 areas especially that have had a big increase: fire response time to emergencies, the location of fire stations, safety in city parks, and then both fire and police safety education programs. And then this chart here is specifically for parks and recreation. You can see no significant decreases, but 5 big increases. The number, quality, and variety of special events and festivals, the quality and variety of recreation programs and classes. The availability of community center and gyms is up 13%. And then the number of pathways for walking and biking is up 6%. And for code enforcement, all of these are pretty similar to the last survey, no significant increases or decreases. And then here's the area that had the most significant increases overall since the last survey, items related to communication. All 5 of these had an increase of at least 7% since the last survey. Usefulness of online services on the website's up 14%. Quality of the city's website. Information about city programs and services up 13%. Effectiveness of communication with the public's up 18%. That's the area that had the biggest increase since the last survey. And then public involvement in local decision-making. So we also did some benchmarking comparisons and see how the city stacks up to residents in other communities. So the blue line are the positive ratings for Meridian residents. The red are the ratings for residents in the mountain region, which includes the state of Idaho, as well as several surrounding states, such as Wyoming, Montana, Utah, and Colorado was in there. And then the yellow are the ratings from residents from across the U.S. And you can see, you'll see as we go through these, in just about every area, Meridian is significantly above both the regional and the national average. This chart here especially has some really, really positive results. If you start with that second row down, customer service from city employees, 80% positive rating for the city, which is 28% above the regional average, more than 30% above the national average. And just going down the list, overall quality of city services, so again, taking into account everything that the city does, 25% above the regional average, 30% above the national. Overall value received for city taxes and fees, you can see that number is almost double the average for the U.S. average, more than 30% above the regional average. And then the city moving in the right direction, 16% above both the regional and the national average. Then here are comparisons for perceptions of the city. You can see much, much higher than the benchmarking averages for the city as a place to live and also as to raise a family. The other item that stands out here is that bottom row, planning for future growth and development. Now that had a 4% decrease from the last survey, but you can see it's still 9% above both the regional and the national average. So it's down a little bit, but it's still a really good number compared to other communities. And for major categories of city services, all of these are significantly above the benchmarking averages. A couple I wanted to point out here, recreation programs and code enforcement are especially far above the benchmarking averages. And then that third from the bottom, recycling services, that also went down a little bit from the last survey, but you can see it also is still significantly above both the regional and the national average. And for public safety, again, just about all of these are significantly above the benchmarking averages. The ones that especially are far above the averages, if you look at that fourth one down, overall feeling of safety in the city, 91% positive rating for Meridian, more than 20% above the benchmarking averages. Then just going down the list a little bit, how quickly police respond to emergencies, that's also more than 20% above both the regional and national average. For parks and recreation, you can see there's 4 areas that are significantly above. One area is significantly below, with this just the number of pathways for walking and biking. But that did see a 6% increase in satisfaction from 2014. So it's still below, but that 47% is 6% higher than it was 3 years ago. So it's headed in the right direction. And for code enforcement, all 3 of these areas significantly above the benchmarking averages. And then the same for communications, significantly above all 3 of these areas. So the next area we'll take a look at is top priorities for the city. So here we ask residents which of these community priorities should receive the most emphasis from city leaders over the next 3 years. And they could pick up to 3 items. So you can see what stands out is by far the highest priority, roads, traffic, and transportation. 70% of residents pick that as one of their top 3 most important. Second highest priority is education and schools. Third is growth and development. And then fourth, jobs and economic development. So here what we have is the important satisfaction rating. And this is a tool that was created by ETC Institute a number of years ago. And this is really a great way to help set priorities. So this analysis is based on 2 questions on the survey. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with different services. And this is that question on major categories of city services. And then the follow-up question is which of these are the most important for the city to emphasize. So the idea here is that those items that have a combination of a low satisfaction rating, but also ones that people think are important, should be the highest overall priorities. So based on that, by far the top priority is planning and zoning services. Residents rate that as the most important item, and it ranked last out of these 16 items in satisfaction. The second and third highest priorities are traffic flow and police department, but there is a significant gap between those 2 and planning and zoning services. Then here we ask residents the question about transportation improvements that are the most important. And you can see by far the top priority was roadway widening. 74% of residents picked that as one of the top 3 most important. Second most important is intersection improvements, followed by shared bike and pedestrian facilities. So then just some other various survey findings. Here we asked residents which of these bond measure options they would be most willing to support. And in this question, they could pick up to 2 that they would support, but people also have the option of picking none if they didn't support any of these. So what's interesting here is only 9% of residents didn't pick anything. So most people support something on this list, but you can see it's a pretty good mix of things. Then highest priority was constructing Linda Road overpass, followed by adding more bike lanes and pathways. But those are just at 36 and 29% of residents who picked those. So here we asked residents how they feel about prohibiting smoking in all indoor public places in the city. So you can see 70% of residents are in favor, only 24% opposed, the other 6% not sure. Here we asked residents how they feel about making it illegal to deny goods, services, housing, or employment to someone because they're either gay, bisexual, or transgender. You can see kind of a mix of responses. 48% oppose making it illegal, 39% in favor of it, and the other 13% not sure. Here we asked residents if they'd be willing to support a levy to purchase farmland in order to preserve it for agricultural purposes. Exactly half, 50% said yes. Just over a fourth, 27% said no, and the other 23% not sure. And then here we asked residents how they feel about giving residents the ability to vote on a temporary sales tax increase that would provide funding for identified and structural infrastructure improvements. You can see here we also have a mixed response, 42% in favor, 37% opposed, a good chunk here, 21% that's not sure. And then we had just a couple more slides about downtown. Here we asked residents how satisfied they are with visits to downtown over the past year. And you can see 68% are either very or somewhat satisfied. And that's a 9% increase from 3 years ago when 59% were either very or somewhat satisfied. And then 13% were either very or somewhat dissatisfied. Then we also asked residents which nightlife entertainment options they prefer bringing downtown. By far the top choice was restaurants. 55% picked that as one of their top 2. And then the other ones rated the highest were live music venues and performance art. So just a quick summary. We saw that residents have a very, very positive perception of the city. There's a lot of examples of that. The ones that especially stand out is most residents feel like the city is an excellent or a good place to live and raise a family. Definitely the city's moving in the right direction. The ratings increased in most areas since the last survey, which is impressive because the results were really, really good last time. Also, Meridian rates higher than other communities in most of the areas that we looked at. The one that especially stands out is the overall quality of city services. So again, taking everything into account that the city does. And then the top overall priorities are roads, traffic, and transportation, education, schools, and growth and development. And that's not a surprise. Most fast-growing cities, items related to transportation or growth are always some of the highest priorities. So overall, really, really great results. They were really good last time and even a little better this time. So really the city's doing a great job. So that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Madam Mayor?
Ms. Mylum.
I do have a question. Thank you for the very thorough report.
Sure.
I mean, we all like living here, probably why we're here, but, so my question though is, on your first slide, I think it was the same as your last slide.
Right.
There were, like, we had improvements and we had like 84 areas, but you only compared 46 of them. Are they specific areas that you generally compare as opposed to comparing all of the areas? Are they what standard areas, or did you just compare our best areas?
So I think you're talking about two types of data. One is trends compared to the previous survey. And there are 84 items that we asked both in 2014 and this year. The 46 you're talking about are comparisons to our benchmarking database. And those are questions that we ask in other cities and counties all across the country. So those are items that we ask often enough to have a benchmarking database.
So it's standard, there's the standard ones that you generally compare all the time for all cities. They weren't selected based on results.
That's right. Yeah. We benchmark as much data as we possibly can anytime we do the survey. So in this case, there are 46 items that we asked here in Meridian that also are included in our benchmarking database.
Thank you.
Right.
Any other questions?
Just very,
I think this council will look forward to getting the full document and having a chance to kind of dive into it and see what the data numbers look like.
Right.
We appreciate you being with us, and this was a great report card, but now we have to gather a little bit more detail to further understand it. But I will give the kudos to all of our staff. This was very impressive. I think that our citizens have come to expect a level of service. Certainly, you set the standard, and now there's an expectation, no pressure. But I know that satisfaction has shown up in a number of different recognitions for the city, and this is a validator. So thank you for your presentation.
Great. Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, if I could, as I hand this out, as I mentioned, Jason put up a slide that showed you a color-coded one of the entire city. That's an appendix. I did not print out the appendix, which has 110 of those maps in it that show the breakdown by region. Part of the reason why I did that, there really wasn't a lot of variation in those maps. Previously, when we looked at it, I think that they even touched on that in the survey. They highlighted how South Meridian was significantly different. This survey really didn't show that. So in the essence of saving trees, I didn't print out hard copies of it for you, but of course, once we get it, that stuff will be made available electronically and otherwise from that standpoint. So I'll hand this out to you, and hopefully next week we'll come back with the resolution for approval. But if you have any comments or edits in what you see, get this to me, and we'll get it to ETC for updates. So we have the final version that we can post to the website and put out to everybody else.
I guess, Robert, I think it would be helpful to just put on, I know they're not some drives, some flash drives, to get it to each of the council members so they can see the appendix.
Okay.
thank you, Robert.
Ooh, full color. Thank you. Okay, item 8A is ordinance 17 and for the record, Mr. Kavner did join us at some point. I didn't even see him slip in at some point during that last item.
I did catch the time.
Okay. Item 8A is ordinance 17-1733. Mr. Clerk, will you please read this by title?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City of Meridian ordinance number 17-1733, an ordinance, Holy Apostles Catholic Church, file number H-2017-0019, for annexation of a parcel of land situated in a portion of Government Lot 1 of Section 30, Township 4 North, Range 1 East, Boise Meridian, Ada County, Idaho, as described in Attachment A, and annexing certain lands and territory situated in Ada County, Idaho, and adjacent and contiguous to the corporate limits of the City of Meridian as requested by the City of Meridian, establishing and determining the land use zoning classification of said lands for from RUT to CC, Community Business District, in the Meridian City Code, providing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Assessor, the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission, and providing for a summary of the ordinance, and providing for a waiver of the reading rules, and providing an effective date.
Council, do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move we approve ordinance number 17-1733 with suspension of rules.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 8A. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes. Item 8B was amended onto the agenda, ordinance 17-1732A. Mr. Clerk, will you please read this by title?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City of Meridian ordinance number 17-1732A and ordinance file number H-2016-0027 Maverick for annexation for part of the northeast quarter of Section 7, Township 3 North, Range 1 East, Boise Meridian, Ada County, Idaho, as described in Attachment A, and annexing certain lands and territory situated in Ada County, Idaho, and adjacent and contiguous to the corporate limits of the City of Meridian as requested by the City of Meridian, establishing and determining the land use zoning classification of said lands from C2 to CG, General Retail and Service Commercial District, in the Meridian City Code, providing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Assessor, the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission as required by law, and providing for a summary of the ordinance, and providing for a waiver of the reading rules, and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum.
I move that we approve ordinance number 17-1732A with suspension of rules.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve item 8B. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Council, under item 9, any topics for future agendas? I do have some upcoming events, the Meridian Fire Promotion Ceremony and Employee Awards ceremony is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Public Safety Training Center. Our city picnic is on Thursday at 5:30 at Kleiner Park. Dairy Days next week. Exciting, all kinds of things with carnival, pancake feed, pool bash, rodeo, music and fireworks. And what is really exciting is the farmers market has almost 30 vendors that will be there. The first event, they have gotten great response this year, and just really excited to see what you can see the best of the best for our youth here in this area. And Art in the Park will be another pleaser for sure. So I did pass out a calendar of events for that. We hope to see you out and about, and if you haven't let staff know that you're attending the parade, please do so. With that, I have nothing further.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, Mr. Byrd.
I move that we go into executive session as per Idaho State Code 742061B, 742061F.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes.